What's up, everyone? I'm Kang, and welcome to the podcast on green sustainable urban planning. I'm the host for this podcast, and I'm studying geology for now. In this podcast, I'll address the idea of green sustainable urban planning from the perspective of smart city transit and how it affects the Earth system to find out why it impacts the sustainability of the city. So, by the end of this podcast, you'll learn how smart city transit make our cities more sustainable in the long run, and perhaps how can this idea be applied in real life. Sustainable urbanism is a recent term in urban design and planning. It describes the study of cities and practices to build them that focus on their long-term viability by reducing consumption, waste, and other harmful impacts. The term is interchangeably used with other terms such as green urbanism and ecological urbanism, but the difference is they focus more on the natural and ecological aspect and less on social and economical aspect of urban planning. Other similar but vague concepts such as sustainable development stress about the construction of sustainable buildings, smart growth management, which involves building more sustainable urban settlements by following sustainability criteria in the process of planning, building, and designing. The key driving principles of sustainable urbanism is acknowledging that the planet has biophysical limit because it has finite resources, and humans are tightly intertwined with natural systems, even in cities. So it explains why we should plan the cities sustainably. The element of sustainable urbanism varies widely from source to source, but public transportation within cities should be given attention because this can directly impact the greenhouse gas emission and in turn affect global warming. So according to statistics, 27% of total greenhouse gas emission is from the transportation sector, and passenger car contribute 41% of greenhouse gas emission in the transportation sector. By math, cars are responsible for 10% of total emissions. When it comes to tackling transportation-induced emission, a lot of advocates are very enthusiastic on converting to electric cars, but it has downsides. Many electric vehicles are quite expensive, so it can be a financial burden. Take Toyota RAV4, the RAV4, a commonly used mid-size SUV as an example. It currently offers two types: the normal standard gasoline RAV4 and the RAV4 Prime, which is a hybrid that uses electric as part of its power source. The price of RAV4 Prime costs nearly $20,000 more than the standard gasoline version. The other more extreme examples, such as Hyundai Kona, the electric version of the model costs 2 times more than the standard gasoline version. Industry-wide estimates suggest that electric vehicles cost $10,000 more than the average car price. Another way to reduce transportation-induced emission is to encourage more car commuters who previously drive to convert to using bus. As a research study found that the energy efficiency per passenger calculated based on a unit of kilometers per liter of fuel per passenger could be 5 times more for a bus than a car. And it could be even more, up to 7 or 8 times for longer articulated buses that carries more passengers. More importantly, commute by bus is not only more environmentally friendly, but the cost is much more affordable for the vast majority of the society. So as such, it's a very wise idea to build an attractive public transit system in a city to make it convincing for people to switch to riding bus. And there's an innovative idea termed bus rapid transit, which strive to speed up the public transit with a variety of tactics to make it more appealing to the general public. The first tactic involves all-door boarding and off-board fare collection to reduce the amount of time bus spend at bus stops, called dwell times. When bus lines employ all-door boarding policy, it allows riders to choose the closest door to where he's standing on the station to board. And compared to conventional boarding processes where passengers line up at the front door to board, all-door boarding allows riders to choose the emptiest door as well. And there's a research conducted by McGill University which found a half-second reduction in boarding time per passenger when buses employ all-door boarding. On top of that, when all-door boarding is coupled with off-board fare collection, it eliminates interaction between driver and rider, which is another factor that could increase bus dwell time at bus stops. These two strategies, when used together, they can work to significantly reduce bus dwell times, which in turn will reduce the fuel which the bus burns when it's stopped. So the reduction in stop time not only makes it faster transit that becomes more appealing to the public, but it reduces the fuel that is wasted when the bus is stopped, which it results to reduced emission, and it contributes to curb global warming. The second tactic is using Farsight Stop, which means placing bus stops after a signal light controlled intersection. The advantage of this strategy is that when bus is waiting behind traffic queue at an intersection when it's red light, it takes time to reach the intersection when green lights start. When a bus were to stop at the near side, which is before the signal light controlled intersection, it risks waiting for another red light if passenger boarding is not finished before the green light ends. When it stops on the far side, the risk no longer exists and completely avoid the chance of delay. On top of that, the driver can even employ skillful, cunning maneuver driving techniques to get across the intersection in time when there is some traffic queue to avoid at the intersection, just like what the Viva bus driver did in this video. As we see in the video, this smart Viva driver managed to avoid getting stuck behind the right turn car when it's green light. So with less signal delay, the travel speed is further increased compared to giving a dedicated lane to the bus, which although could eliminate traffic queue-induced delay, but requires more construction and result more greenhouse gas emission. The Farsight Stop method is the simplest, cheapest, and environment-friendly method. As buses travel faster on a bus line, less buses needed to maintain the same frequency, and thus requires less fuel to operate the line, which results to less carbon emission. The last tactic involves the utilization of high-capacity buses, especially those 18-meter articulated ones instead of regular 12-meter ones, to reduce the number of buses needed to carry the same amount of riders on a bus line. With this tactic, the bus can operate at lower frequency. This can reduce the chance of bus bunching, which is a phenomenon when buses travel in groups and cause delay at bus stops when several buses pull in, which results to reduced travel speed. Moreover, compared to single-body bus, the longer articulated bus is estimated to have even higher energy efficiency by per passenger basis, which in turn decreases the carbon footprint per passenger. So after discussing the 3 beneficial tactics and how it decreases emission to the atmosphere, let's talk about a real-world example. So the Viva Rapid Transit of York Region is a very good example of bus rapid transit, which the city of Toronto should emulate on TTC. However, Viva is a tiny system compared to TTC with only 6 lines in operation. Meanwhile, most TTC lines aren't designed like a bus rapid transit. They don't have all-door boarding and off-board fare collection, so their boarding process is slow, especially at peak times when passengers line up at the front doors. The bus spend a lot of time at bus stops. Especially their near-side stops make them prone to delay at signalized intersection. These features make TTC unattractive to commuters, thus make more TTC lines that are designed more like a bus rapid transit would be a big opportunity for the City of Toronto to reduce its emissions. Now, before we end this video, let's draw a conclusion here. So, based on the analysis we've done, designing and building more bus lines that can function like a bus rapid transit is a very affordable and realistic measure towards green sustainable urbanism, especially for places that are less developed and are not very wealthy.